Hi everyone. Did you know that the speed of this sailing ship could not be surpassed for more than a century and a half? Imagine the year 1849. The world is in the grip of the California gold rush. Trade routes are exploding with opportunity, fortunes are waiting on distant shores, and the great age of sail is reaching its peak. Merchants are desperate for speed, because in those days speed meant profit. Now picture a sleek clipper leaving the busy harbor of Hong Kong, bound for New York. Her name sounds almost mythical, Sea Witch. At the helm is Captain Robert "Bully Bob" Waterman, a man known for pushing both his ship and his crew to the very limits. With towering masts and clouds of canvas driving her forward, the Sea Witch races across the Pacific and around the globe with astonishing determination. And what happens next will make maritime history. 74 days. That was the time it took for the Sea Witch to sail from Hong Kong to New York, an extraordinary achievement for the era of sail. For a single hulled sailing ship, that record would stand for generations. In fact, it remained unbeaten for 154 years. Only in the 21st century could a modern high-tech trimaran finally surpass it, a vessel built with materials and technology the shipbuilders of the 1840s could never have imagined. But the legend of the Sea Witch does not end there. This remarkable clipper also became the first ship to sail from New York to San Francisco around Cape Horn in less than 100 days, proving that speed across the world's most dangerous waters was not just possible, but achievable with the right design and the right crew. She carried tea from China faster than anyone believed possible, and her reputation quickly spread across oceans and continents. So impressive was her story that even US President John F. Kennedy admired it. A model of the Sea Witch reportedly stood in the Oval Office of the White House, a symbol of daring innovation and the golden age of sailing ships. And yet, like many great legends of the sea, the story has a tragic ending. Despite her fame and incredible achievements, the Sea Witch met her fate on the reefs near Havana. On her final voyage, she was carrying around 500 Chinese immigrants, a somber reminder that the great trade routes of the 19th century were filled not only with adventure and profit, but also with human stories of hardship and hope. But this raises a fascinating question. How did a New York shipyard, Smith and Dimon, manage to build a vessel so far ahead of its time? What secrets were hidden in her hull lines, her rigging, and her revolutionary design? And perhaps the most intriguing question of all, what was the true price of such incredible speed? Today, we raise the sails once again and travel back to the golden age of clippers to explore the plans, the design, and the engineering genius behind one of the fastest sailing ships ever built, the legendary Sea Witch. Imagine, if you will, the shipyards of Manhattan in the mid-1840s. It's a time of incredible innovation, and in 1846, one man is about to change shipbuilding forever. His name is John W. Griffiths, and for the prominent trading firm Howland and Aspinwall, he puts pen to paper and designs a vessel that will become the stuff of legend, the clipper ship Sea Witch. But what was it about Griffith's design that made the Sea Witch so revolutionary? How did this ship, built in a New York yard by Smith and Dimon, become the fastest thing on the oceans? The secret wasn't magic, despite her name. It was a complete rethinking of the ship's shape. Before the Sea Witch, most ships were built with full, rounded bows. They were stable and could carry a lot, but they pushed water aside, creating a massive wave that held them back. Griffiths threw that concept overboard. He gave the Sea Witch what was called an extreme clipper design. Her hull was long and sharp, like a finely honed blade. More importantly, he designed her bow to be concave, or hollowed out, just below the waterline. This wasn't just for looks. This hollow bow allowed the ship to slice through the waves instead of slamming into them. It parted the water cleanly, offering far less resistance and allowing her to maintain incredible speeds even in rough seas. But a sharp hull is only half the story. To achieve record-breaking speed, you need power, and for a sailing ship, power comes from canvas. The builders at Smith and Dimon knew this well. They outfitted the Sea Witch with a mast system so tall, so immense, that for a brief time, she was the tallest ship afloat. Her mainmast towered an astonishing 140 feet above the deck. To put that in perspective, that's like a 14-story building made of wood and rope, swaying with the power of the wind. To manage this incredible height, the designers didn't just add bigger sails, they added more tiers of sails. On her mainmast, as well as her fore and mizzen masts, she carried 5 separate sails stacked one above the other. This was a massive amount of sail area for a ship of her size, 908 tons burden. It meant that even in a light breeze, Captain Bully Bob Waterman could crowd on more canvas and keep her flying toward her destination. So, the secret to the Sea Witch's speed was a brilliant combination. Below the waterline, the revolutionary hollow bow of John W. Griffiths let her glide through the sea with minimal drag. And above deck, the towering masts and massive sail plan from Smith and Dimon gave her the raw power to harness the full force of the wind. This was a ship so perfectly designed for speed that her influence would be felt for generations, setting a standard for what a clipper ship should be. It's no wonder that over 150 years later, sailors would still look back at her records with awe. When the Sea Witch slid down the ways at the Smith and Dimon shipyard in New York on a cold December day in 1846, no one could have predicted the legend she was about to become. Designed to rush valuable cargoes of tea and porcelain from China back to the eager markets of New York. But her story is far more than a list of fast passages. It's a story of record-breaking glory, of adaptation during a national crisis, and a final, tragic end that gives her entire legend a poignant, human weight. To understand her importance, you have to understand the man who first walked her deck. Her captain was Robert Bully Bob Waterman, a name that struck fear and respect into the hearts of sailors. He was a driver, a man who pushed his ships and his crew to their absolute limits. And in the Sea Witch, he found his perfect match. On her very first voyages, the partnership paid off. In 1847, she tore from Hong Kong to New York in an astonishing 77 days. But Waterman knew she could go faster. And in 1849, he proved it. Under his iron hand, the Sea Witch smashed her own record, completing the same 14,000-mile journey in just 74 days. Now, think about that for a moment. That record, set in the age of sail, with nothing but wind and canvas and the bravery of a hardened crew, that record stood for 154 years. It wasn't until May of 2003 that a modern, high-tech trimaran named Great American II finally beat that time, and even then, it was only by a single day. The sailors on that modern boat looked back at the Sea Witch with awe. One of them, Rich Dumoulin, noted that the old clipper had done it without weather forecasts, without satellite communication, without any of the advantages they had. He said, and I quote, "The power of the Sea Witch in heavy seas and strong winds is still awesome, and it was carrying cargo." In 1848, gold was discovered in California, and suddenly, every fortune seeker on the East Coast needed to get to San Francisco as fast as humanly possible. The Sea Witch was put on the famous Cape Horn route. In early 1850, she did what no ship had ever done before, she sailed from the East Coast to San Francisco in just 97 days. The first vessel ever to make the journey in under 100 days. She became the symbol of an era, the ship that could deliver you to your dreams faster than anyone else. But a ship's life, like a person's, has its seasons. By the mid-1850s, the Sea Witch was aging. Newer, larger clippers had taken her place in the glamorous fast freight trade. Her owners gave her a new, far less romantic job, she was refitted to carry immigrants. And this is where her story takes its final, tragic turn. In 1856, with around 500 Chinese immigrants on board, heading for a new life in the Western Hemisphere, the Sea Witch was approaching Cuba. On March 26, just 12 miles west of Havana, in what should have been the home stretch of her voyage, she ran aground on a reef. Her hull broke up, and the Great Sea Witch was gone. So, why should we care about this ship today? Why does she matter? She matters because her service life encapsulates the entire clipper ship era in one perfect, dramatic story. You have the brilliant beginning, born from the innovative mind of designer, whose radical hollow bow design changed shipbuilding forever. You have the golden middle, where she shattered records and helped fuel the California gold rush, becoming the fastest thing on the water. And you have the sobering end, a reminder that these magnificent wooden vessels were not immortal. They were tools of trade, and when their speed was gone, they were given humble, dangerous duties. When a 21st century sailor looks at her time and calls it awesome, he's acknowledging a standard of excellence set long ago. Thanks for watching.